Call to order the meeting of Bryan City Council for Monday, February 6, 2023. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Start the evening off with the first item on our agenda, which is approval of the minutes from the January 17th meeting. Also, and the January 26th special meeting.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Judy? Yes. John?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes. Second item is a hearing of public concerns. Seeing no one coming forward, move to the third item, which is an ordinance. Lori, would you please number and read?
Ordinance number 2, 2023, an ordinance providing for the transfer of funds for the city of Bryan for the month ending February 28, 2023. This is a transfer request of $400,000 from the 1% income tax fund to the 101 general fund for general spending purposes, and a transfer request of $110,000 from the 250 fire department fund to the 305 police fire building debt retirement fund. Total amount of transfer requested, $510,000.
I'll move to approve.
And suspend.
I'll suspend.
Suspend.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mary?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes. Next item is also an ordinance. Lori, would you please number and read?
Ordinance number 3, 2023, an ordinance providing for annual appropriations for the city of Bryan for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023, and declaring an emergency. This is an appropriation request for $44,843.13 for the probation grant 2223. This is to allow them to appropriate their additional funds before the grant expires on June 30th of 2023. In addition, it's an appropriation of $58,063.45 for the J-RID grant for the same thing. It's a probation grant that will expire on June 30th, so we're appropriating the remaining dollars. And it's an appropriation request of $2,650 for facility maintenance for the Parks General Fund. Total amount of appropriation requested, $105,556.58.
I'll motion to suspend.
I'll second.
Judy?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Jim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Rick?
Item number 5 is an ordinance. Lori, would you please number and read?
Ordinance number 4, 2023, an ordinance amending and/or repealing sections 953.01 through 953.99 of Chapter 953, refuse collection of the City of Bryan Codified Ordinances.
Council, you have been presented with an ordinance. There are just a few amendments on this, and I'll go through that. Under Section 1, Item C, we left out regular cardboard and also the H in DPE plastic containers for recycling. There was an error in the month that the contract would increase by the 3.5%. That should actually state July instead of January. And then recyclables will be collected 2 times per month. That was a misprint in the original ordinance. And then we're going to change that bulk when it was Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Thursday and Friday will be from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. Saturday will be 8 a.m. to noon at the request of the street commissioner. Do you have any questions on these changes or corrections?
I'll move to suspend.
I'll second.
John?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Jim?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 6 is an ordinance. Lori, would you please number and read?
Ordinance number 5, 2023, an ordinance approving the collective bargaining agreement between the Ohio Patrolmen's Benevolent Association and the City of Bryan, governing sergeants in the Bryan Police Department.
Council, you have presented with the 3-year contractual union agreement between the City of Bryan and the sergeants for Bryan Police Department. Again, I would like to thank Lori, Chief Reski, Captain Mendez, Mr. Betts, and Mr. Kozenplek for their work on that, as well as Sergeant Beers and Sergeant Hammond. And Mark Fischel. Do you have any questions on that contract? Comments? No?
I'll move to suspend.
I'll second.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
John?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 7 is another ordinance. Lori, would you please number and read?
Ordinance number 6, 2023. An ordinance authorizing an agreement with Arcadis US Inc. for construction engineering for the wastewater treatment plant dewatering project in the total amount of $142,000.
Good evening, council.
Evening.
What you see here tonight is the construction end of the dewatering project that we've been working on. This is to get Arcadis under contract with us to handle the construction as we enter into that. We're still working on the guaranteed maximum price from Peterson Construction, so that's not as we go forward here. This is just getting the engineering firm under contract with us. The guaranteed maximum price is still on its way for that project. Possibly Thursday, I may know a little bit more about it. We have a meeting with them. Still up in the air a little bit. They're working on some fine tuning of their numbers to make sure that they've got it right for us. So just the engineering firm at this point.
And this is going to be another CMAR?
Yeah, this is a CMAR project. This
Okay.
is the dewatering project you guys approved, I think it was the end of 2021. We kind of had hoped to have this project like actually underway at this point, but because of the supply chain issues, like nobody could get prices nailed down for us, so it's kind of slid on into this year.
I'll move to suspend.
Second.
Jim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
I'll move to approve. I'll second.
Mary?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wes.
Thank you, Wes. Item number 8 is a resolution. Lori, would you please number and read?
Resolution number 8, 2023. A resolution authorizing the clerk treasurer to advertise for bids for the St. Paul School Sidewalk Project known as WIL Streets Bryan City Schools PID 113489, agreement number E210103.
Good evening. This is the Safe Roads to School program. All plans and easements that were required were finalized in December. We received federal authorization January 19th to bid this project. The total cost is estimated at $416,204, with up to $400,000 of that being in grant funds that are reimbursed. We're going to revisit the estimate, still make sure it's acceptable. ODOT has a bid receipt date of around March 15th, with the award by May 1st, and construction could be completed by September 29th of this year. The locations for this project are parts of Fountain Grove Drive, Markey Drive, Cardinal Drive, to Barrister, and then west-south street from Markey to Noble Drive.
Do you think that September 20, it's all good, but my first question, probably because I'm involved a little bit with the schools, is that's about 4 weeks into when the schools have started and a really busy area. Do you think that's going to work? And if so, do you think do you need to like shut that Markey as an example? Do you need to shut the street down? Or
Shouldn't need to shut the street down completely. It may be reduced to one lane.
Yeah, it's gonna be,
Um,
that's okay.
So
No,
we want to get this out to bid and get
Yeah,
it.
yeah, no, I'm
everything in
with
order
you.
right now,
I was just
so.
trying to think ahead as to,
What he's
Think-
trying to say is when the mayor had construction in her backyard, it was a really big pain for the bus drivers that week.
it's not
Is that
gonna be
fair?
less of a pain now, but it's a good project, it's a needed project, and it can certainly, if that's the biggest problem, can be certainly worked around. I was just curious as to if that could be expedited to be done by August the 20th or something. If not, that's okay.
I have a couple questions. You said to Noble Drive.
Yes.
All right, will they ever go clear over to Main Street, do you think? And which side of the street on South Street is this going to be on? Because I see a lot of people walking on South Street.
South Street, it is going to be on the north side
Okay.
from Markey to Noble. Originally, this project was supposed to go all the way to Main Street, but the cost was exceeded the grant funds. So we did apply, and I believe we received, because we met with ODOT last year, about continuing it from Noble Drive all the way to Main Street. So that'll be a future project.
Andy, do you know, though, at one point there was talk about switching to the south side of Noble after that?
Because there's a couple houses
Because of
there on
easements, et cetera.
South Street, you're going to have a hard time getting a sidewalk in there.
Well, I know we had to go, I think the reason for being on the north side to Noble currently is because there's a grade issue
No.
there at the corner of Fairlawn and South Street.
Okay.
Now, when we go from Noble to Main, that may switch back over to the south side. Because we're going to have other issues on the north side in that stretch, so.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And it will be only one side of each street, too. There's not sidewalks on both sides.
Well, that's what Portland is now, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. I'll move to suspend.
Second,
Judy?
Yes.
John?
yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Mary?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Item number 9 is a resolution. Lori, would you please number and read?
Resolution number 9, 2023. A resolution authorizing Carrie Schlade as delegate and Tom Sproul as alternate to represent the city of Bryan as a member of the Board of Directors of the Ohio Municipal Electric Association in 2023.
Council, you are presented with this resolution. It is an annual resolution we ask you to pass. One, again, designating me as delegate, and then Tom Sproul from the Board of Public Affairs as the alternate in case I cannot make a meeting. This is, again, under the AMP branch, OMEA is, and I am currently one of the 3 of 16 elected by that board for the executive committee. With that being said, Board of Public Affairs acted on this at their last meeting. Mr. Sproul has again volunteered to be the alternate, so I ask for your approval as well.
Move to suspend,
I'll second.
John?
yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Jim?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes. Item number 10 is another resolution. Lori, would you please number and read?
Resolution number 10, 2023, a resolution to accept a $2,500 donation in furniture and accessories from Sarah's Friends to the Bryan Police Department for a forensic interview room.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
Evening.
Yeah, we are asking for this donation. Katie Schaefer with Sarah's Friends has graciously worked with Captain Mendez on this project. This will allow us to have one of the only certified forensic rooms in the county of Williams. And it's not $2,500, it's up to $2,500 in furniture and things that are necessary for that room.
I motion to suspend.
I'll second.
Mary?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Move to approve,
Second.
John?
yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes. Next item is another resolution. Lori, would you please number and read?
Resolution number 11, 2023, A resolution to authorize the mayor to accept a grant of $42,238 from the Ohio Criminal Justice System for body-worn cameras for the officers of the Bryan Police Department.
Okay, again, this is a grant we filed last year. We finally got the approval to move forward with it. So with the approval tonight, we can make the purchase for the body cameras for the department. That will hopefully reduce civilian complaints and also officers that need to appear in court for testimony.
I'll move to suspend.
I'll second.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Move to approve. I'll second.
Judy?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jim? John?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Item number 12 is another resolution. Lori, would you please number and read?
Resolution number 12, 2023, a resolution authorizing the Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of Bryan to apply for a grant for the City of Bryan through the Bryan Area Foundation.
Good evening.
Evening.
Just asking for your permission to apply for a grant through the Bryan Area Foundation for our inclusive playground project.
I'll move to suspend.
And I'll second.
Okay.
John?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Judy?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Ben.
Next item is another resolution. Lori, would you please number and read?
Resolution number 13, 2023, a resolution to authorize the fire chief to accept a grant of $43,860.87 from the State of Ohio Fire Marshal for the purchase of Marks radios.
This is a grant that we applied for last year, we received. This should help outfit the rest of our vehicles with mobile radios and a couple more portables to build out our fleet. Ask that you allow me to accept that grant.
Yeah, I can't remember, so this is more of a refresh my memory, because it seems like it's been a year plus or it's the mark system, because I just read this a few days ago, that a local village area is going with a different, is this a compatible
This
piece?
is
I
the
cannot remember.
statewide public safety radio
Okay.
system, yes.
Okay.
So our police department is fully operational on marks.
Yes.
For their radios. Fire, there were some townships that could not quite get up to that, and now we've rectified that situation. They were able to also get grants, so we are fully going to Marks Radio in the fire department, which was a step in the process. We just had to get through that.
I was just concerned, I wanted to make sure that it was compatible, because we have, obviously, we have contracts with the other.
Everyone in the county has now moved to the Mark system.
Okay.
The prior system that we were using is still operational, but it's, as long as it continues to function, we're not doing any maintenance on it, so if it goes out of service, we'll drop it, and we're not paying anything to.
When will
maintain
this
it.
be in service? Marks.
This Marks is in
It's in
service. It has
service
been.
now. Okay.
We're operating on the same thing that the police department has,
Okay.
and most of the other EMS and sheriff and most other entities in the county are operating on that as well.
Yep, thank you. I'd move to suspend.
I'll second.
John?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Motion to approve. I'll second.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Chief.
Item number 14 is another resolution. Lori, please number and read.
Resolution number 14, 2023, a resolution approving the Community Reinvestment Area Tax Exemption application as submitted by Justin Downing, Ivy Lee LLC.
This is for 702 South Main Street. You may have noticed the house is gone. He's looking to rebuild another house there, and I believe he wants to get started later this week on it.
I was floored when I drove past it one day. I went past one day, the house is there, the next day it's gone.
I was elated.
So
Yeah, it needed to be done.
it needed
But
work.
Yeah.
So
Just
he was,
saying.
he was gonna rehab it, but after he got in there, he's like, no, we need
Yeah.
to start fresh, so.
Yeah.
Good call.
It's gonna be a nice change.
With the $90,000 construction cost, he would be eligible for a 7-year waiver.
Yeah. That's all.
And I do want to make a point, just so that everyone knows, because we have had all this Port Authority conversation and CRAs and et cetera. This is not changing our current CRA. This is one of the few residential properties that is within the map that council had already approved years ago. Fair?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, to my knowledge, this is our first residential. So,
I'll move to suspend.
I'll second.
Judy?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
And I'll move to approve.
Second.
Jim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Next item is a motion to approve and sign a support letter.
Council, at your request, I have prepared a support letter for Fountain Creek Villas that was presented to us last month by Todd Valentine. Mr. Betts, I did just notice the S that should not be by council by your name, so I will correct that.
That's all right.
And BPA also has a letter similar to this for the Board of Public Affairs to approve tomorrow at their meeting. With that being said, this week I was given or sent a certified letter from OFA, which is the Ohio Housing Financial Agency. Mr. Kozenplik, you also received that letter as council president. So what I'd like to do is ask council to approve this letter. We can all sign it tonight, and then I can forward your letter to OFA as well. But Mr. Valentine asked for these to be addressed to him initially. He was very fine with us sending the same letter to OFA, so I can just communicate that with both. To date, Mr. Valentine has been able to get letters of support from the Williams County Commissioners, the Williams County Port Authority, and the Williams County Metropolitan Housing Agency. Yep, that Andy sits on that board. And I believe that there are a couple other letters that they're hoping to get by midweek so that they can get this submitted for potential funding. Any questions, concerns, comments? Okay, Mr. Hoopy, we'll need a motion to approve from council, the letter itself.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the letter as written to Mr. Valentine and OFA.
So moved.
I'll second.
Judy?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Thank you. And then again, if you could stay after the meeting and sign that, or you can have the original.
Next item is an annual report from our fire chief, Mr. Poole.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
So, you should have a copy of the report in front of you. If you've got any questions specifically, I'll try to answer those. But if not, we're going to kind of give the highlights of what's going on, and talk about where we are, and maybe a little bit about where we're going. Our run activity has stayed fairly consistent. As you can see, we're up and down a little bit, but that 450, 500 number, and it ever so slowly creeps upward, moving towards the 500. This has been a long progression. When I started some 28 years ago, that number was 300 calls per year. So it is gradually increased, and I anticipate that it will continue to increase slowly over time.
Predominantly because of the increase in emergency calls
It's
versus fire
emergency
calls?
It's everything. We're seeing the fires stay relatively the
That's what
same.
it looked like.
But it varies year to year. That call number will bounce up and down just a little bit. And what's really strange is we're not seeing a larger population, but we're seeing an increase in calls.
You're finding that still manageable?
It is, yes. It's challenging, and we're working through it.
Okay.
There were a few days that it was close to not manageable, though,
No,
in fairness.
Yes, and that's my last slide, so.
Okay.
Sorry.
One of the incidents there was, again, bus fire that we had, that's okay. Just a few that are pictures of things that have happened through the last year. Thank you. Our emergency activity, about 50 fires a year, and I've looked back, and that stays pretty consistent. And that, we say fires, that's a house fire, that's a fire in an electrical outlet that is classified as more than a contained fire. It could be a grass fire, things along that line. That number stays right around 50. That one's really not moving. Some of the other stuff bounces around. Rescue emergency calls, that number is up a lot over the past 10 years. Good intent calls, people calling in that think they have a problem. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, and we go out and help them resolve it or figure out what it is. That number is up a little bit. False alarms. False alarms aren't necessarily malicious false alarms. We're talking about smoke detectors tripping off, things that are actually creating a response, but there is no actual fire. And that's really where the bulk of our calls are, is in those areas. And some of the other things were, this last year, the end of the year was better. The previous year, we had a lot of hazmat calls, and a couple of those are on the way. Over at Archibald, mutual aid call, frozen food specialty. The other is on the Turnpike, one of many in the construction zone that they had over the last year. So that was a little bit higher than normal too in some of those hazardous conditions that we responded to.
Can I ask a question of
Yes.
something that happened today in eastern Ohio?
Yes.
The train with...
I'm familiar with what you're talking about, but not
Well, yeah, the question I have is, because I do not know, how would we respond to that? Would we have to call in?
much in the same way that they are, or we would quickly overwhelm local resources.
I think.
Reaching out through the mutual aid system for the state.
Oh.
And in this case, they're across state lines as well. So they're also using assets out of Pennsylvania,
PA.
as I understand.
Okay.
But the statewide mutual aid system for the fire chiefs has been activated. They've called surrounding counties, not just those that are in the immediate mutual aid. We've done the same thing. The fire at the Metal X over in Delta, the Turnpike, when they had the hydrogen release up there. The system is designed to continue to bring resources in to manage. Again, they're working with the EPA, other outside agencies. We work very well with the Ohio EPA for the hazmat responses that we have. It's challenging, but...
Who makes the call on the evacuation? Like they made it a call for evacuation and they said about 65% of the people left, 35% did not.
Under the state of Ohio law, as a hazmat, it falls to the local fire chief as the ultimate authority. However, that decision is not made by the fire chief, I can tell you. That would be in consultation with government officials and other emergency response agencies to determine what's the best course of action, because it's more than just an evacuation. It's where are we going to send those people, and what resources do we need to actually move people that are having difficulty. Fortunately, it sounds like they have a very small population.
Exactly. Yeah.
Something near Bryan would be an extreme difficulty to move the number of people that we would out of this community. Think of a 1 mile circle and you're taking everybody out. Yeah.
Well, plus the industry is going to have to, Spangler's right next to the railroad track.
Huge impact, yes. And they've been at this for 3 days now.
Yeah.
It's going to last for a while. Yes.
And we had a drill that
Yes.
EMA helped us with a few years ago that actually took place. It was obviously not real, but it was a chlorine explosion at our water treatment plant. And so I had to declare a state of emergency. We involved local law enforcement, EMA, fire, EMS. So our central location would probably be the police and fire building, at which point we would bring in EMA, EMS, and start that process. I think our evacuation for that one was at the Y, where we sent people to. So we've got plans in place.
It's something that we practice. We do have plans in place, and we, again, are evaluated by the state as well. They look at our plans. We have to actually go through a 4-year process of drills that we work with them, and there are a lot of outside resources that are available and working within the community and what's around us. We would manage through the event. We're not going to do it on our own, and
No.
I think pretty much everyone can say that.
Well, I was kind of more curious from the perspective of if we had a plan and how it was going to operate, because so many times, especially in small communities, of which this was one, says, that's not going to happen here, we're too small. Well, a derailment's going to happen wherever there's
Yep.
track.
Right, yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and I won't say that we'll be perfect, but we scored pretty well on that drill. Also got DMU, they needed to do some training as well, so
Thank you.
we're pretty good together, I think.
We learn every time, and
Yeah.
we get better as we go as well, yes. Emergency activity, where is it? The picture is out of town, but as you can see in the graph, most of our calls are within the city proper. So most of our responses, out of everything, out of our 478 calls, 312 of them inside the city limits. That's where most of our time is. The Center Township and Pulaski Township are other big receivers. Again, that's part of our contract to provide that coverage to Jefferson and Hillside also, but to a much lesser extent. Again, how long does it take us to get there? It's based on how far away you are. Obviously, Bryan, we've got a lot faster response, typical response from the time our page goes out. And there's really a difference in that from the time somebody picks up 911 and calls. There's a lag of about a minute to a minute and a half for the call taker to receive it and actually put the page out. From the time that we get the page till someone shows up, that's what this reflects. In Bryan, it's about 5 minutes. Hillside, you see way over 15 minutes. Part of that is simply in drive time, and others are that it happened at 2 in the morning or late, where we have a delay, even further delay to get out the door, and the call number is down, so it really greatly skews that. But we do see generally upwards of 8 to 9 minutes into Jefferson Township, and the others in that 8-minute range. Really, that's what we're shooting for. 8 minutes from the time we get the call to be on scene anywhere. That's kind of the gold standard for us. Again, one of our large incidents there from the week-long event out in Center Township. Everybody asked, when do we go? As you can see, it scatters. Last spring, we were a little bit slower. Every year, the day of the week changes. This year, it's a little bit more in the middle of the week. Last year, it was, I believe Wednesday was a peak, and then it was Saturday. But the time of day at the bottom pretty well represents what we've seen in the past. Overnight, we have a lot less calls. We start picking up around 6 a.m. in the morning. By 7 o'clock, we start to see that number up, and then it starts to trail down in the evening. We are seeing the calls just a little bit later. Again, harder for us to put people on the scene. With the staffing that we have, we've tried to staff up between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m., and then we slowly drop off towards 7 p.m. After 7 p.m., we're really stressed for people. It's really hard for us to get a full response to that. Those that are on call, they're making it, and that's how we're getting through. This isn't unusual. Usually we see a lot in the unintentional for our fires. We see a lot in failure of equipment. But in this last year, we have a very high incidence of intentional fires. Intentional fires could be somebody meaning to do malicious harm, or it was something they started a fire that extended beyond where they wanted it. It was an intentional start. The picture here is from one of our incidents that happened in the parks. That's a mattress fire there. And a mattress in the park on fire is not something that's an accidental cause. And unfortunately, we had a few of these last year.
Unless Ben was having an overnight and it got out of control.
That's not what happened, Mr.
Oh,
Pence.
okay.
For the
Well, I was just
record,
curious.
all the media.
No. No, actually,
Do you
that was-
happen to have do you keep track internally? I don't need to know it, but I'm just curious on the intentional, because I'd like to, if I were in, I would like to know if I was in the fire department, how many of them are malicious intent? How many
Yes.
of them are out of
Yeah,
control?
yes,
I mean, I start a brush
we do
fire.
break that number down a little bit
Okay.
more as the
I don't need to
malicious
know it.
intent. And malicious is somewhat, not necessarily always the right term. You could get into curiosity with fire, especially with juvenile fire setters. We see that curiosity sometimes can be the cause. They didn't really mean to do any harm, but they had that
Yeah.
misunderstanding what fire could do. So it's a wide variety of things. Fire prevention program, we're trying to get out there and do things so that we don't have fires. This is the best way we can put them out. Our annual inspections, we're through every school, every daycare. We are required to go into the group homes as part of their licensing. New buildings going in, fire alarms, fire suppression. Any building that goes up for their final occupancy, we're through. We see a number of those inspections. Education, we do extinguisher training throughout the factories that have asked us to do at no cost to them. We're providing that training. I've got the numbers listed. I believe they're in the handout that I've given you. But we have a number of factories that call us every year, and we'll do hundreds for individual factories as they've requested. Our fire safety program in the school, we had hired a group back before COVID to come in and do a program for the schools. With COVID, we lost those. They quit coming to the schools. Captain Gillette has put together a program, and they have been in the schools the last few years, and we've seen some really good reception to that. So I want to commend on that program. Station tours, we see the kids every year. Now that COVID is over, we'd love to see them back in. They love to come visit us. See Safety Town every year, so we work well again with parks, and lots of community events, the Halloween, all those things good for us. Smoke detector program, we started something a few years back. Every second grader in the Bryan schools and St. Pat's gets a smoke detector during Fire Prevention Week. The volunteer company actually, as part of their fundraising, they donate those detectors, and then we get them out. As part of that also, we have smoke detectors that are available to residents that are not able to put them in their own homes, and if they need help, we will come out and install them. Training, we do a lot of that, even with the limited numbers of people we have. 3,876 hours last year. That comes out to about 104 hours per firefighter that we have on staff. Our training academy, we're state certified, providing volunteer fire certification, Fire 1, Fire 2. We can do EMS continuing ed, which will be affected by House Bill 509. We are not going to be able to continue that unless legislation changes when our charter expires. Our firefighter continuing ed that we do, everyone is required to do a minimum number. We have live fire, and again, we're working on that burn building so we can bring it back here. Last year, we were able to acquire a structure. Very difficult for us to do that for live fire, a lot of EPA requirements. But this structure that's in the picture, we were actually able to burn last spring. We brought in all of the neighboring departments to try to get some live fire training, and it was a very successful day. That was also right after we did the hazmat over at Frozen Food Specialties in the morning, so it was a long training day. Other things that are out there, again, we're doing hazmat training. We brought a number of people on last year, just trying to keep up our certifications within our firefighters. Some of those are done by outside agencies where they're actually certified, but we have a lot of different specialty training that we're doing, and it takes a lot of time to keep up with that. So that really brings me to the last part. We need help. We still have. We've been trying to bring in volunteers. Over the last several years, we've had about, I'll say the last 5 years, we've had 5 people that have actually been able to qualify. When I say qualify, they can pass background checks and basic entrance physicals to join. Of those, none have completed the Fire One program. Various reasons, time commitments, family, moved out of the area, but we've had no one complete in the last 5 years that we brought on as a entry-level firefighter. On the right, that's the current department as of January 1st. The officers, career staff, since then, Adam Helms has resigned as a career staff member, taken a job with the state as a fire inspector. So we're currently looking to fill his position. Hopefully I'll have that done by the end of the month. Paid on call. And I've switched this terminology from where we always said volunteers before. And it was always kind of a misnomer.
Always bothered me.
Yeah.
It's fixed.
So as you think of the volunteers, those members that are still on, there's really only 5 out of that list that are really carryovers from that. Our 3 lieutenants and Reed Thompson and Casey Sanders, they're really from that old system. Everyone else is a paid-on-call or a part-time firefighter. They're coming back in only on calls. Some we brought out of retirement, essentially, to get them back on so that we've got enough people for fires. And I've got quite a few that live outside of the fire district that will come and work for us to help fill in those day shifts when we need them. Because during the day, we need that extra help. And the last 3, over the last year, we've actually had them come off the roster. So the numbers haven't been moving in the right direction for a number of years. Fortunately, we've been able to bring in part-time and paid on call, bring them back in. Some of these names that are on here have been around a long time. They've retired and graciously have said, yeah, I'll help the city out as long as I've got a certification. How long? I'm not real sure.
Well, I'm not so sure how many people, and I want to make this plug, understand that this phenomenon of not being able to get firefighters is not unique to Bryan. It's a national problem, certainly a state as well as a national problem that's driven by at least a couple things that I've heard and seen, and that is, one, the amount of time of training per year needed, and the second is the amount of increased hazard that has taken place. So between those two, if you're someone who just got married and having kids, that time commitment, as well as daddy's going out and potentially exposing himself to who knows what, even with protection, I really think, I don't believe the term be the hero is any dramatic statement at all. I think they are heroes based on the time commitment, based on their commitment to the community, and based on what they're getting themselves involved in. It's just not falling through a roof. It's once you're in there, what is going on. And so I don't know. I don't want to get too much on the soapbox, but I appreciate that opportunity, and I wanted to make sure people understood, well, just why don't you do it? You know, you can get paid to come on. Yeah, you can. And you're going to have a lot of that time eaten up with your training time.
We'll pay you, we'll train you, we'll
Yeah.
outfit you. We can do that part. I just need someone
To
willingly
willing to do that.
be
Right.
ready to show when we need them.
Yeah, well, thank you.
How many are you short as far as what you would consider a full?
Well, it's kind of hard to say what's short. When we have a fire call, we really should have about 15 to 16 people show up to respond to that fire from our department. We're getting those numbers, but we're getting 8 or 9 from our department, plus our mutual aid department. As we bring them in, then we're ending up with that 15 to 17 number. And that's pretty much the way everyone in the county is operating. Normal day-to-day operations, false alarms, even car crashes, we don't get the same response. We will typically see the on-duty staff, maybe 1 or 2 more. Well, on-duty staff during the week is the 3 admin plus a 24-hour firefighter and a 12-hour firefighter. So that means there are 5 of us that are available to respond. If I get a part-time to show up, that's 6. I can put 4 on the engine, and I've got the 2 chief officers. That's where we start with. After 7 o'clock, there's 1 person in the station. We're relying on those 3 lieutenants, the captain, the assistant chief, and myself as that second person that we know will show up. We're doing the lift assist, the medic assist. There's 2 of us. That's what we have. Full crew for an engine is 4 people. Anything less than 4 is less than effective. We're getting there. We can do something. We can start till more help shows up. What we really need is overnight to get that second person in. One of those lieutenants, if they leave, puts more burden back onto the other 2 and the other 6 or 5 members that are left. And at this point, I myself, every 12 days, I'm covering a night shift to make sure that somebody is there to respond. Somebody's on vacation, we're backfilling that. It adds up the time. They're already making a huge commitment. These 3 lieutenants have done a tremendous, they've really stepped up and helped us out. But every 4 days, they're on that night call. And some nights you sleep, and a lot of nights you don't. Christmas Eve, I was out twice. It happens, and that's part of what we do. And that's part of what we took on. But the manpower is getting short. We've kind of solved the problem during the day, at least to get to a minimum. But we're starting to see a shortfall at night. And as more and more of our career firefighters are living outside of our fire district, less than half are Bryan residents. Most live elsewhere. They come here, they work here, and they go home. Most are on other departments when they go home. We have a couple that are working on other departments that live here. So when they're off, we may get them as part of our paid on call. So it's a little bit of back and forth. But at any given time, I can't tell you how many people out of that paid on call are available for a response. I have no way of knowing. I know that I've got 1 on station right now, and I've got 1 on call. Other than that, there's no guarantees. Not good news,
Appreciate
but that's
everything.
it.
I'm
Yes.
sorry?
It's not good news, but that's where we're
Well,
at.
and that's, I think it's important for people to hear that. And I just want to say thank you for you and what all of your firefighters do for us on a daily basis.
And we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Wes Wygant, tough act to follow here.
Well, I've been waiting for this all year.
Don't run.
It's going to be a little more razzle and a lot less dazzle.
All I always like talking about wastewater.
Everybody does.
It's the most important plant in the city.
Okay. We had a pretty quiet year this year. I had hoped to be able to show you a little bit and tell you a little bit about the dewatering project. As I said earlier, it's delayed at this point, so next year we'll double down on that. Our standard starter picture. Go ahead.
Got it.
All right, that's the overview that we see every year of the plant. Nothing has changed there at this point. Coming up in the next couple of years, we'll add some pieces to the puzzle out there on the northeast side of the plant. That's still a ways off. Hopefully it does not get delayed. We had a total flow of almost 579 million gallons last year. That's down just a little bit from from 21. I think partially we've seen a little decrease there from the work that Bryan and the engineering department has done in town. Does seem to make a difference. It's kind of smoothed their peaks out there at the plant. And typically what we had in years past when it would rain, like we'd get a big deluge, it'd show up right away. We're starting to see that smooth out a little bit, so I think that they've done a good job of identifying the places in town that really need it the most, and so we're happy with that. Our daily average was about 1.6 million gallons. 21 was 1.635. Not a lot of difference there, but as you can see, that made up the overall reduction in flow that we saw. Was about 15 days worth of flow out there. So every little bit helps us. We treated 1.6 million gallons of digested Class B solids. We dewatered that, and we have thermal drying out there, which creates a Class A product. And in the end, we had 253 tons of Class A biosolids that went out. That's a little bit of a increase from 21. And I think the explanation for that is Spangler had a good year with their production, was my understanding of it. And a wastewater plant, as you fuel it and you put fuel into it, it creates biosolid. Biosolids is what you have to get rid of in the long run. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
And what do you do with those biosolids?
Everything that we have done up until this point, a local farmer took and used it as fertilizer. It's actually pretty decent fertilizer, so he land applied that. He actually got with me in December, and he's no longer doing that. He got to the point he's about ready to retire, and he decided he was going to dial things back. Just like everybody else, he didn't have enough crew there, somebody that kind of wanted to take it over, because if you're taking biosolids, there's a little more paperwork with it. It's just easier to put fertilizer on a field. So unfortunately, at this point, that's going to the landfill from starting in this year. Not ideal. I hate to see anything go in a landfill that doesn't need to, but one of the drawbacks of giving it out, you have to have a reliable person that's going to take it, or a company that's going to take it, because regardless of whether you give it to them, it still belongs to us. So we asked around, looked around. Takes a pretty good size operation to do. This particular guy that did it before had a big operation, and a small guy, it just would not be worth the hassle for them. And so we just didn't really have any takers that were too interested in it. So that's how we ended up where we're at now. Treatment efficiencies, 94.5% removal of suspended solids. That's the stuff that you can filter out of water. The plant does a good job, always has. It was good design. Carbonaceous biochemical oxygen demand is a measurement of how strong the pollutants in the water are, how much oxygen it uptakes to be able to remove it and oxidize it and clean the water. We get a 97.9% removal. That's pretty steady. It's a good plant. Again, does what we want it to do. Ammonia removal, 99.4. That's a really good removal rate for any plant. Phosphorus removal, 91.3. Phosphorus is a tough chemical to remove from water. Phosphorus is the thing that is the main driver of what's happening in Lake Erie with the algal blooms that you see there. You'll hear more about that as the years come forward. The secondary treatment project that we just kind of kicked off, that is somewhat addressing, that's the very tip of the spear for addressing the phosphorus problems in the lake. It's still a very good removal rate that we have here, and we had to make some adjustments a few years ago to kind of just figure out how to tweak that, and it's worked out really well, so the numbers, we're happy with that. Cost of treatment is 3/100ths of 1 cent per gallon through the plant, so we get a pretty good return for what we put into the thing. So just, we didn't have any big projects this year, so what I've got for you is just kind of some shots of the daily work that the guys do out there. This is Josh Harper and Rod Carlisle. They were replacing some, I believe they were 1960s vintage exhaust vents for our primary digester. These are the guys a little bit tougher to see with the lighting. Every year we get down, everybody notices the screw pumps out front of the plant, and every year we get down in there and clean the intake side of those pumps. One of the things that you pick up throughout the years, the sewer system has always got grit and sand and gravel that kind of washes in through joints and broken spots. We clean that out. The guys spend the day down there. They go through all the bottom end bearings, check everything, check the tolerances, check the bolts, make sure everything's torqued down and looking good. That's a part of the pump that you don't see until you shut it down. It's always underwater. The next slide here will show, that's kind of the material, again, a little bit hard to see, but that's how that sand and gravel piles up there. It's probably a ton to a ton and a half that'll show up there over the course of a year. We take that out every year, and then, of course, we've got 3 pumps, so we do all 3 of them. This is a photograph. That same pumping system on the top end, the drive end, the connection from the gearbox to the actual pump itself that you notice when you drive by there, those things shear off every, maybe 4 or 5 years. There's a lot of torque on that pump, and a lot of trash and junk goes up through those pumps. The screw pumps themselves generate about 150,000 foot-pounds of torque, so it's a lot of torque. And that plate, it's kind of hard to tell from the photograph, that plate's about 1.25 inches thick. And what'll happen is over time, you'll fatigue the welds, fatigue the steel. Eventually, it'll just tear itself apart. Next, please. That's just the connection end of it where it destroyed itself. These are, that's Jason Mannon and Rod Carlisle reinstalling the new drive shaft and upper bearing assembly on that particular pump.
So it just stops?
Yeah, it just, the motor keeps running, the pump itself stops, yeah. Yeah.
Hence the term gear, right?
Yeah, we've had, I've been in on, I wasn't in on replacing this. I get to sit inside in the warm temperature and watch the guys when they're out in the window, watch them out the window doing the work. But yeah, I've seen in my career here, I've seen several of those let go. Never been up there when it happened, thank goodness. But yeah, it's a big job. That takes a couple days to get done, and you have to do it no matter what the weather is. It's sunny today, but it was pretty cold that day they were out there, so you can't see the misery on their faces, but they were miserable. That's pretty much all I got, short and sweet this year. I didn't have anything exciting, so. Any questions?
Well, we're looking forward to future excitements.
Yeah. We'll have some pictures for
We're
you
going to call it
next year.
Project 1 and Project 2.
Yeah. Yep. 3 and 4.
I call them
depending.
Wes's projects, that's what.
Listen,
No.
3 and 4 he's already working through in his head. You just haven't heard of them.
They're way out there, yeah. Spoil the surprise.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Wes.
Thank you.
Wes.
May
Thanks,
not
Wes.
have the buzzards and whistles of some of the other things, but it's pretty necessary what you do out
Yeah,
there.
there's nothing pretty about it. It's like I always tell the guys, it's like being in the boiler room of a ship, like nobody goes down to see what's going on in the boiler room, but you're not going anywhere if you don't keep it running, All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I think we're ready to go around the room, see if anyone has anything further. We'll start with fire. Police. Engineering. Parks. Wastewater. Okay, that was- We'll start down here with Jim.
Okay. I just want to thank Sarah's Friends for their gracious donation. And thank Chief Poole. You guys are doing a great job. And Wes, thank you. That's all I got.
And I'm gonna ditto him. Thanks Sarah's friends for the donation. I also thank Chief Poole and his team for everything that they do for the community and surrounding communities. And also thank Wes for what he does for us as well. And that's all I've got.
John?
Yes, I will echo that in terms of thanking the Bryan Fire Department wastewater, and also the municipal report. They do get read, guaranteed. They get read, and I believe the mayor and some of the supervisors will tell you they also get questioned, and I always get good answers, and it's very helpful, so I want to thank them for that. Also, the Sarah Friends donation, appreciate that very much. It's good to know that we are one of the only places in Williams County where that's going to be able to take place. And the police, parks, and fire department, I want to thank them for their grant applications. That's something that gets overlooked and is expected, but you just heard a little bit about the fire chief talking about what they need to do and how he extends his life to get things done for our community, and put on top of that, looking at and applying for grants through the administration as well. So I wanted to thank them for that. And also Justin for the investment in Bryan that they're making. Ivy Lee, I think, is that right? Okay.
Yep.
Appreciate their investment in Bryan, and if they have any interest in like 10 or 12 other properties down towards that direction, I would more than be happy to support that. And also thanking the Frontier Community Services and the Bryan Development Corporation for investing in very much needed housing. Hopefully that will take place because it's very, very, very needed. But I appreciate all their efforts towards that end. That's it.
Judy?
Also, thank you to Sarah's House for the donation, the Ohio Criminal Justice System for the grant that we got, and the State of Ohio Fire Marshals. Thank you to Doug and Wes for your reports. They were both very interesting this evening. I also want to thank all of you supervisors who apply for these grants. That really, really helps the city out, and I know it takes time to do that, and we really do appreciate it. And I also want to say thank you to Lori. I'm glad you didn't lose your voice tonight. You had a lot of reading to do.
Lori, do you have anything further? Mayor?
Just a couple things. I want to thank, at the beginning of this, the department heads. It is always tough when we start the beginning of the year and we ask them to present their presentations to council. They like to be the people doing the work, and so for some of them, it's out of their soapbox and out of their comfort level to be in front of all of us, so I appreciate them doing that and their willingness, because I do think it's important for council to get a more intimate picture into what it takes to run a department in the city. They're all very skilled at their positions, and so I appreciate them taking the time to present these PowerPoints to you. It's a lot of work. And also for all the grant writing, I think, when we talk about the city, I don't know that I or any of us do enough job of promoting all the great things that we've been doing over the last several years. But they are working very hard to secure grant dollars. They are working on safety. Body cameras a few years ago was not something that was being investigated, and now we're going to get them. Mark's radios now, that will be our first responders' primary line of communication throughout the county, police and fire. Parks has been doing a phenomenal job at writing and asking for grants. And Wes and Lori have been working a lot on the dewatering project, both CMAR projects. There's been a lot of activity every day. Obviously, our engineering department is fantastic at writing grants as well. So I'm very lucky to be the mayor here, as I've said before, because there's a lot of great things that they do every day. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to, everyone pretty much stole my thunder on all of those items. I agree with everything. Sarah's House, or Sarah's Friend, for their donation. Tom Sproul and the mayor for their serving on the Ohio Municipal Electric Association. And The other thing that I had noted was the grants. You know, I, in my other life, I do some grant writing, and I know how difficult that can be to try to write those grants and get everything to them that they need in order to try to select you for the money. And I don't know how much money we as a city get through grants, but it is a tremendous amount of money. And I want to thank you for putting that effort in for those things. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
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 You want to, nope, sign that letter? I've got all your papers right there,
Yep.
so then you can pass it down before anybody leaves, please.